The emergency council chamber hummed with tension as holographic displays flickered to life across the curved walls. Representatives from 47 species materialized in their designated seats, their forms shimmering in blue light. At the center podium stood Chancellor Orcs, a tall being with silver skin and 3 sets of arms, each pair clasped nervously. "The message arrived 3 hours ago," Orcs announced, his voice steady despite the trembling of his lower hands. "Veltherin, the Ancient One, is dying." A collective gasp rippled through the chamber. Dragons rarely died, their lifespans stretched across millennia. Veltherin was special even among his kind. He had witnessed the formation of the Galactic Council itself, 40,000 years ago. He had mediated wars, preserved ancient knowledge, and guided civilizations through their darkest times. "There is more," Oryx continued. He gestured, and a recording filled the air. Veltheron's voice, weak but unmistakable, spoke in the harmonic tones that characterized dragon speech. "I must speak with the human who knows my name. Find them. Bring them to me before I fade." Silence fell like a heavy blanket. Ambassador Lyra Castellan, Earth's representative, felt her heart sink. She rose from her seat, her formal diplomatic robes suddenly feeling too tight. "Chancellor, with respect, this seems impossible," she said carefully. "Dragons guard their true names. No human has ever learned one. Perhaps the Ancient One is confused in his final hours?" A dragon representative, younger than Veltherin by a mere 3,000 years, spread his wings in a gesture of disagreement. "Dragons do not grow confused. If Veltheron says a human knows his name, then one does. The question is, which human?" Ambassador Castellan's mind raced. She pulled up her communicator and began sending urgent messages. Within minutes, she had mobilized Earth's top experts on dragon culture, language, and history. If any human knew Veltherin's true name, it would be one of them. Dr. Jen Kuiper received the summons while analyzing audio recordings in her laboratory on Mars. She had spent 30 years studying dragon linguistics, collecting every recording, every syllable, every harmonic pattern. She had built databases, created algorithms, and dedicated her life to understanding dragon names. Yet she had never successfully learned even one true name. Her hands shook as she packed her equipment. This was her moment. Surely, if anyone qualified as the human who knows, it would be her. The search party assembled quickly. Ambassador Castellan led the group, which included Dr. Kuiper, 3 other xenolinguists, 2 dragon culture experts, and a security detail. They would start at the most logical place, the last location Veltherin had visited before retreating to his death chamber. That location was Kepler Station, a modest research outpost orbiting a binary star system in the outer rim. The station hosted various scientific projects, nothing glamorous, nothing that would normally attract galactic attention. Records showed Veltheron had stopped there 7 years ago during a routine knowledge exchange tour. The delegation's ship arrived at Kepler Station late in the evening cycle. Captain Ray Santos, the station commander, met them at the docking bay. She was a practical woman in her 50s, with gray streaking her black hair and the confident posture of someone who had earned their position through years of hard work. "Ambassador Castellan," Santos said, extending her hand. "We received your message. I've assembled all personnel who were here 7 years ago, 15 scientists, 4 administrators, and 6 support staff." "Excellent," Castellan replied. "We need to interview everyone immediately. Time is critical." They set up in the station's main conference room. One by one, the scientists filed in. Each interview followed the same pattern. Yes, they remembered Veltherin's visit. Yes, they had attended the formal presentations. No, they had not spoken with him personally. No, he had not shared his name. Dr. Kuiper grew more frustrated with each negative response. She pulled up her equipment, playing recordings of dragon speech patterns, asking each person if they recognized any sounds. Nothing. No one remembered anything useful. Hours passed. Ambassador Castellan felt panic rising in her chest. Veltheron was dying, and they had no leads. She stood and addressed Captain Santos directly. Is there anyone else? Anyone at all who might have encountered the dragon? Santos thought for a moment. Well, there are the night shift workers. They wouldn't have been at the formal meetings, but they would have been on the station. Bring them in, Castellan ordered. The night shift crew consisted of 2 security guards, 1 communications operator, and Marcus Webb, the night janitor. They entered the conference room, looking confused and slightly nervous. The security guards and operator were quickly interviewed and dismissed. Then Marcus Webb sat down. He was an ordinary-looking man in his early 50s, wearing the simple gray uniform of station maintenance. His hair was thinning on top, and he had kind eyes behind practical glasses. He carried a slight smell of cleaning solution and coffee. Mr. Webb, Ambassador Castellan began, her voice tight with exhaustion. 7 years ago, did you see or interact with the dragon Veltheron during his visit? Oh sure, Marcus replied casually. We talked quite a bit, actually. Nice fellow. Very thoughtful. The room went completely still. Dr. Kuiper leaned forward, her eyes wide. You talked with him? About what? Life. Mostly, Marcus said with a shrug. He was interested in my work. We discussed philosophy, family, that sort of thing. He told me about his experiences across the galaxy. I told him about my daughter. She's in medical school now, doing really well. Ambassador Castellan felt dizzy. Mr. Webb? Did Veltheron tell you his name? His true name? Marcus looked genuinely surprised by the question. Well, yes. On the last night of his visit, he said. Marcus paused, then spoke a series of sounds that seemed impossible for human vocal cords. The harmonics layered perfectly, each tone precise and clear. Dr. Kuiper's recording equipment lit up like a festival display. The dragon name was perfect. Absolutely perfect. Ambassador Castellan stared at the janitor, her mouth open. You mean Veltheron? Marcus added helpfully. He asked me to remember it. Said names were important. The conference room erupted into chaos. Dr. Kuiper knocked over her chair as she lunged toward her equipment, checking and rechecking the audio analysis. The readings were impossible. Yet there they were, perfect harmonic alignment, correct tonal layers, exact pronunciation of a dragon's true name spoken by a human janitor. Ambassador Castellan gripped the edge of the table, trying to process what she had just witnessed. Mr. Webb, she said slowly, do you understand what you just did? Dragons don't share their true names. Ever. Especially not with janitors? Marcus finished gently, without any trace of bitterness. I know it seems strange, but Veltheron and I just talked. He was lonely, I think. Captain Santos, who had been standing quietly by the door, stepped forward. Marcus, why didn't you ever mention this? You met one of the most important beings in the galaxy. Marcus adjusted his glasses, looking genuinely puzzled by the fuss. He asked me not to make a big deal about it. Said he valued his privacy. Besides, nobody ever asked me about it. The scientists were busy with their research. I was busy with my work. Seemed like a private thing between friends. Friends, Dr. Kuiper repeated, sinking back into her chair. You're saying you were friends with Veltheron? I suppose so, Marcus said. Is that important? Ambassador Castellan took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain calm. Mr. Webb, I need you to tell us everything. Every detail about your interactions with Veltheron. Please. Start from the beginning. Marcus nodded and settled more comfortably in his chair. As he spoke, his eyes took on a distant quality, remembering. It had been 7 years ago, during the station's quiet night cycle. Marcus had been cleaning the observation deck. His favorite assignment. The massive windows looked out onto the binary stars, their light painting everything in shades of gold and blue. He was wiping down the glass when he heard the gentle sound of claws on metal flooring. Veltheron stood at the entrance, his massive form barely fitting through the doorway designed for smaller species. His scales, Marcus remembered, had shimmered with colors that seemed to shift between green and gold. The dragon's eyes were ancient, but kind. "I hope I'm not disturbing your work," the dragon had said, his voice like distant thunder. Most people would have been terrified or overwhelmed. Marcus had simply smiled and continued cleaning. "Not at all. There's plenty of room. Just finishing up the windows." The dragon had moved closer, curious. "You work during the night hours?" "For 15 years now," Marcus replied. "I like the quiet. Helps me think. Plus, the day shift workers need their time with families. My daughter's grown now, so the schedule suits me fine." They had talked while Marcus worked. The dragon asked about his life, and Marcus answered honestly. He spoke about his daughter, Sarah, who was studying to become a doctor. He talked about the satisfaction of keeping things clean and organized, how he found beauty in the simple act of maintaining order in a chaotic universe. Veltharan had really listened in a way that surprised Marcus. The dragon shared his own thoughts about existence, about watching civilizations rise and fall, about the weight of carrying 40,000 years of memories. "Do you ever get lonely?" Marcus had asked, polishing a handrail. The question seemed to surprise the dragon. "Yes," Veltharan had admitted. "Very lonely. Most beings see me as a monument, not a person. They want my knowledge or my influence. Few simply want my company." "That sounds hard," Marcus said. "Everyone needs someone to just talk to sometimes." The dragon had returned the next night, and the night after that. For 2 weeks, while the formal research exchanges happened during the day, Veltharan spent his evenings with Marcus on the observation deck. They discussed philosophy, shared stories, and enjoyed comfortable silences. Marcus had asked about dragon culture, and Veltharan explained it patiently. He spoke about how dragons valued memory and truth, how their names were precious because they contained the essence of their identity. A true name wasn't just sounds, it was history, personality, and soul combined into harmonic language. On the final night before Veltharan's departure, the dragon had seemed thoughtful. They sat together watching the binary stars rotate, casting their double shadows across the deck. "Marcus Webb," the dragon had said formally, "I would like to give you something. A gift, if you'll accept it." "You don't need to give me anything," Marcus replied. "Your company has been gift enough." Nevertheless, the dragon had lowered his great head until his eyes were level with Marcus's. "I want to share my name with you. My true name. Will you remember it?" Marcus had felt the weight of the offer, even if he didn't fully understand it then. "I have a good memory," he said. "I'll remember." Veltharan had spoken his name slowly, breaking it into parts so Marcus could hear each harmonic layer. Marcus's photographic memory captured every nuance, every tone, every vibration. He repeated it back, and the dragon's eyes had widened with surprise and pleasure. "Perfect," Veltharan had said softly. "You understand that this is sacred? That names have power?" "I understand it's important to you," Marcus replied. "I'll keep it safe." "Why do you think I'm sharing this with you?" the dragon had asked. Marcus had thought about it while he collected his cleaning supplies. "Because you see me as a friend, maybe. And friends trust each other with important things." The dragon had made a sound like distant wind chimes, dragon laughter, Marcus realized. "Exactly right. Most beings look at me and see a legend. A tool. A source of ancient wisdom. You see a person who enjoys conversation and gets lonely. That is a rare gift, Marcus Webb. Rarer than you know." In the present, Marcus finished his story. The conference room was completely silent. Dr. Kuiper had tears streaming down her face, though she didn't seem to notice. Ambassador Castellan sat very still, processing everything she had heard. Captain Santos broke the silence. "You never told anyone?" Marcus shook his head. Veltharan valued his privacy. It felt wrong to gossip about a friend. Ambassador Castellan stood, her diplomatic composure finally cracking into something genuine. "Mr. Webb, Veltharan is dying. He asked for you specifically. We need to take you to him immediately. Will you come? Marcus stood without hesitation. Of course. When do we leave? The diplomatic shuttle launched from Kepler Station 6 hours later. Marcus sat in the passenger compartment. A small travel bag at his feet. He had packed simply a change of clothes, his reading glasses, a photo of his daughter, and out of pure habit, a small cleaning kit. When Ambassador Castellan had seen it, she had opened her mouth to object, but Captain Santos had placed a gentle hand on her arm and shaken her head. Let him be himself, Santos had whispered. That's clearly what Veltheron wants. The journey to Veltheron's death chamber would take 3 days of faster-than-light travel. The ancient dragon had chosen a moon orbiting a gas giant in an uninhabited system, a quiet place to spend his final hours, far from the noise of civilization. Dr. Kuiper couldn't stop staring at Marcus. She sat across from him, her recording equipment spread across her lap, still analyzing the audio of him speaking Veltheron's name. The data was perfect, impossibly perfect for a human without any linguistic training. Mr. Webb, she finally said, breaking the silence that had settled over the cabin. How did you memorize the name? Dragon names have 17 distinct harmonic layers. Most humans can't even hear half of them, let alone reproduce them. Marcus looked up from the book he was reading. I've always had a good memory for sounds, he explained. When I was young, teachers thought I wasn't paying attention because I never took notes. But I remembered everything I heard, every word, every conversation, exactly as it was spoken. Photographic memory? Dr. Kuiper asked. Eidetic memory for audio. I think the doctor called it, Marcus said. It made school interesting. I couldn't read very well, still struggle with big words sometimes, but I could remember every lecture perfectly. People thought I was lazy because my test scores didn't match what I could do verbally. Ambassador Castellan, who had been working on her datapad, looked up with new understanding. So you became a janitor, not because I wasn't smart enough for other things, Marcus finished kindly. I became a janitor because I like the work. It's honest. It's necessary. And it gave me time to raise my daughter on my own after my wife passed. The night shift paid well enough and let me be there for Sarah during the day. Dr. Kuiper set down her equipment, her expression shifting from curiosity to something like shame. I've spent 30 years studying dragons, she said quietly. 30 years of research, recordings, analysis. I built my entire career trying to understand them. And you just talk to one. You study them because you find them fascinating, Marcus said gently. That's good work. Important work. But maybe Veltheron wanted something different from me. He had plenty of people who wanted to study him. Maybe he just needed someone who wanted to know him. The words hung in the air. Captain Santos, who was piloting the shuttle from the cockpit, smiled to herself. She had worked her way up from enlisted ranks, scrubbing decks, and doing maintenance before earning her command. She understood what Marcus meant in a way the academics might not. What did you two talk about? Santos called back. During those nights on the observation deck? Marcus thought for a moment. Everything and nothing. He told me about watching stars being born, about civilizations he'd helped guide through difficult times. I told him about Sarah's piano recitals and the satisfaction of getting stubborn stains out of laboratory floors. We talked about loneliness, his from living too long, mine from working while everyone else slept. Did he tell you about dragon philosophy? Ambassador Castellan asked. About the knowledge he carried? Some, Marcus admitted. But mostly we talked about feelings. He was scared, I think. Scared of being forgotten. He'd lived so long and seen so much. But he worried that when he died, people would remember the legend but not the person. Not the dragon who liked watching stars and enjoyed terrible puns. Dr. Kuiper blinked. Terrible puns? Marcus smiled. The first real smile since boarding the shuttle. Oh yes. Dragons have a sense of humor. Veltheron, especially. He once made a joke about quantum mechanics that took me 3 minutes to understand. When I finally got it, I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my mop. The image of the galaxy's oldest living being making jokes with a night janitor seemed to break something in Dr. Kuiper. She started laughing not unkindly, but with the release of someone who had been carrying too much tension. Soon, even Ambassador Castellan was smiling. The 3 days passed in a strange mixture of anticipation and camaraderie. Marcus taught Captain Santos a card game his daughter had loved as a child. Dr. Kuiper shared stories of her research, speaking more honestly about her failures and frustrations than she had in years. Ambassador Castellan, slowly letting go of her rigid diplomatic persona, talked about why she had entered politics, a genuine desire to build bridges between species, though she had lost sight of that somewhere along the way. On the third morning, they arrived at the moon. Through the shuttle windows, they could see other dragons circling in the sky. Veltheron's kin, keeping vigil for their dying elder. The moon itself was barren except for a massive natural cave system that glowed with a soft, internal light. "That's where he is," Captain Santos said softly, bringing the shuttle down to a cleared landing area. The death chamber. As they prepared to disembark, Ambassador Castellan approached Marcus with a datapad. "Mr. Webb, I've prepared some notes on proper protocol when addressing a dying dragon. There are specific phrases you should—" "Thank you," Marcus interrupted gently. "But I think I'll just talk to him like I always have." As a friend, Castellan opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Captain Santos was right. They needed to let Marcus be himself. That was the whole point. They stepped out of the shuttle onto the rocky surface of the moon. The air was thin but breathable. Maintained by ancient technology the dragons had installed millennia ago. Above them, the dragons continued their slow circles, their scales catching the light of the distant sun. Marcus picked up his small bag, including his cleaning kit. This time, no one tried to stop him. He looked at the cave entrance, took a deep breath, and started walking. The others followed at a respectful distance, witnesses to something unprecedented in galactic history, a janitor going to say goodbye to a friend who happened to be the oldest living being in known space. The cave entrance loomed before them, ancient and sacred. Marcus walked through it without hesitation, his footsteps echoing in the vast chamber beyond. It was time to say goodbye. The death chamber was vast beyond imagination. The ceiling stretched upward into darkness, while the walls glowed with a soft bioluminescent light that came from ancient moss placed there by dragons thousands of years ago. The air was warm and carried the scent of minerals and something else, something ancient that Marcus couldn't quite name. At the center of the chamber, on a bed of smooth stones, lay Veltheron. Marcus stopped walking, his breath catching. The magnificent dragon he remembered had dimmed. Veltheron's scales, once shimmering with green and gold, now looked gray and tired. His breathing was labored, each breath a visible effort. But his eyes, those ancient, knowing eyes, remained bright. Ambassador Castellan, Dr. Kuiper, and Captain Santos hung back near the entrance, understanding instinctively that this moment belonged to Marcus and Veltheron alone. Marcus walked forward slowly, his footsteps soft on the stone floor. When he reached the dragon's side, he set down his bag and sat cross-legged on the ground, just as he had done 7 years ago on the observation deck. "Hey, old friend," Marcus said quietly. "Been a while." Veltheron's eyes opened fully. A sound rumbled from deep in his chest, not threatening, but warm. Relief. Recognition. Joy. "Marcus Webb," the dragon said, his voice weaker than Marcus remembered but still resonant. "You came." "Of course I came," Marcus replied. "You asked for me. Friends show up when they're needed." The dragon shifted slightly, trying to make himself more comfortable. Marcus noticed and, without thinking, stood and began adjusting the stones around Veltheron's body, moving some, adding others, creating better support. It was natural to him, helping someone in discomfort. He didn't see a cosmic legend. He saw a friend who was hurting. "Thank you," Veltheron whispered. "Always taking care of things. That's who you are." Marcus sat back down. "How are you feeling?" "Tired," the dragon admitted. 40,000 years is a long time, Marcus. I've seen stars born and die. I've watched civilizations rise from nothing and crumble to dust. I've carried so many memories, so much knowledge. And now I'm afraid. Afraid of dying? Marcus asked gently. Afraid of being forgotten, Veltharon said. Not my accomplishments, those will be recorded in history. But me, the person I am. The dragon who loves watching binary stars and makes bad jokes. The one who gets lonely. People will remember Veltharon the Ancient, the Keeper of Knowledge, the Council Guardian. But will anyone remember Veltharon, the person? Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking about his own father. The old man had worked in a factory for 40 years, building parts for ships he'd never see completed. On his deathbed, he'd expressed the same fear that his life of simple work meant nothing, that he'd be forgotten. My dad worried about the same thing, Marcus said. He thought because he wasn't famous or important that his life didn't matter. But I told him, Dad, you were a good father. You taught me that honest work has dignity. You showed me that kindness costs nothing but means everything. You taught me to see value in every person, regardless of their job or status. That's not nothing. That's everything. Veltharon's eyes glistened. And do you remember him? The person, not just the father? Every day, Marcus said. I remember how he sang off-key while fixing things. I remember his terrible jokes. I think that's why I appreciated yours so much. I remember how he treated the janitor at his factory with the same respect he gave the owner. He made me who I am. That's what I want. The dragon said softly. I want someone to remember the person. The conversations we had. The questions I asked. The doubts I carried. I remember. Marcus said simply. I remember all of it. Every word. Every moment. That's my gift. Remember? I can't forget even if I wanted to. Veltharon made that wind chime sound again, the dragon equivalent of laughter mixed with tears. That's why I asked for you. Not the diplomats or the scholars. You. Because you saw me. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Marcus told stories about the past 7 years, about his daughter Sarah graduating medical school, about the new telescope installed at Kepler Station, about small moments that made up a life. Veltharon listened, content, occasionally asking questions. Then the dragon grew serious again. Marcus, I want to give you something. My knowledge legacy. Everything I've learned. Everything I've witnessed. Traditionally, this goes to other dragons or to official repositories, but I want to give it to you. Marcus started to protest. Veltharon, you're just someone who will preserve not only what I knew, but why it mattered. The dragon interrupted gently. The official repositories will get the facts, but you'll remember the context, the meaning, the person behind the knowledge. That's more valuable than any database. From the entrance, Ambassador Castellan stepped forward, unable to stay silent. Ancient One, with respect. This is highly irregular. The knowledge should go to, it's his choice, Dr. Kuiper said. Surprising everyone, including herself. She placed a hand on Castellan's arm. We need to respect that. Castellan looked at the elderly dragon and the middle-aged janitor sitting together like old friends. Something in her diplomatic heart shifted. She nodded and stepped back. The knowledge transfer took hours. Veltharon spoke, and Marcus listened. Information flowed. Not just facts and figures, but stories, wisdom, understanding. Marcus's perfect memory captured it all, preserving not just the what, but the how and why. The watching delegation saw something remarkable. As Veltharon shared his legacy, his scales seemed to brighten slightly. The act of being truly heard, truly understood, gave him peace. As the moon's sun rose, casting light through cracks in the cave ceiling, Veltharon grew quieter. His breathing slowed. Marcus, he whispered. Thank you. For seeing me. For being my friend. For remembering not just what I was, but who I was. I'll tell them, Marcus promised, his voice thick with emotion. I'll tell them you were happy. I'll tell them you had a friend. I'll make sure the person isn't forgotten. Veltharon's eyes closed peacefully. His final breath was a long, gentle exhale. The oldest living being in the galaxy passed away, not alone and afraid, but surrounded by friendship and understanding. Marcus sat with him for a long while after, tears streaming down his face. Then, slowly, he stood. He opened his bag and pulled out his cleaning supplies. Gently, carefully, he began cleaning the dust from Veltheron's scales. A final act of service and respect. No one tried to stop him. They understood this was sacred in its own way, one friend caring for another. Even at the very end, the news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Ancient Dragon leaves legacy to Janitor became the headline on every major news network. Within hours, Marcus Webb's face was on screens from Earth to the Outer Rim colonies. The story seemed impossible, yet it was verified by Ambassador Castellan herself and witnessed by Dr. Kuiper, the galaxy's leading dragon expert. The reaction was immediate and divided. Some praised Veltheron's wisdom in choosing connection over credentials. Others questioned whether a janitor could properly preserve such important knowledge. Academic institutions protested. Cultural commentators debated. Everyone had an opinion about the dying dragon and the ordinary man he had called friend. Marcus returned to Kepler Station 2 weeks after Veltheron's passing. He had politely declined interviews with major networks, turned down book deals worth more money than he'd earn in 10 lifetimes, and ignored the thousands of messages flooding his communication device. He just wanted to go back to work. Captain Santos met him at the docking bay personally. "Welcome home, Marcus. Fair warning, there are reporters trying to get onto the station. I've banned them all." "Thank you," Marcus said with genuine relief. "I just want things to go back to normal." Santos smiled sadly. "I don't think that's possible anymore, but we'll try." Normal proved elusive. The Galactic Council requested Marcus's presence at a formal ceremony honoring Veltheron's memory. He attended, wearing his best clothes, still simple, still modest, and gave a brief speech. He didn't talk about dragon philosophy or cosmic knowledge. He talked about friendship, about seeing people for who they are, about the value of simple kindness. The speech went viral. People across the galaxy watched this ordinary man speak with such genuine warmth about the ancient dragon. Something about his words resonated. In a universe obsessed with status and achievement, here was someone who valued connection above all else. Dr. Kuiper approached Marcus after the ceremony. "Mr. Webb, Marcus, I have a request. Would you help me organize Veltheron's memories? I've spent my career studying dragons, but I realize now I was missing something essential. I want to learn. If you're willing to teach." Marcus was surprised. "I'm not a teacher, Dr. Kuiper. Call me Jen, please," she said. "And you are a teacher. You taught Veltheron that he was more than his accomplishments. You taught me that knowledge without connection is hollow. I want to help preserve his legacy the right way, not just the facts, but the person behind them." They began working together at Kepler Station. Jen set up a small office near Marcus's supply closet. During his breaks, he would share stories about Veltheron, and she would help organize them. She learned to listen differently, to hear, not just information, but meaning. Their collaboration produced something beautiful, a memorial that captured both the legend and the person. Ambassador Castellan's life changed too. The experience with Veltheron had shaken her deeply. She had built her career on protocols and procedures, on maintaining proper diplomatic distance. But watching Marcus's simple friendship with the dragon had shown her what true diplomacy could be, genuine connection between beings, regardless of status. She began advocating for reforms in how the galaxy recognized contributions from everyday workers. "We celebrate scientists and leaders," she said in a passionate speech to the council. "But who celebrates the people who keep our stations clean, our systems running, our daily lives functioning? They're invisible until we need them, and that's wrong." The council created the Veltheron Fellowship in honor of the ancient dragon. Unlike other prestigious awards, it wasn't given for academic achievement or heroic deeds. It recognized ordinary individuals who demonstrated exceptional character, kindness, and the ability to see the value in every person. Marcus Webb was the first recipient. The prize included a substantial monetary award, He donated every credit to his daughter's medical school debt and to a scholarship fund for children of service workers. My dad taught me that honest work is its own reward, Marcus explained when asked about the donation. I don't need recognition or money. I need to know I'm making a difference. Even if it's just keeping floors clean so scientists can focus on their research. 3 months after Veltheron's death, something unexpected happened. Another dragon arrived at Kepler Station. She was younger than Veltheron, only 8,000 years old, but still ancient by any standard. Her name was Seraphine, and she specifically requested to meet Marcus. Captain Santos found Marcus in the observation deck, his usual cleaning spot. Marcus, there's a dragon here to see you. Marcus set down his mop, surprised but not alarmed. Send her in. Seraphine entered carefully, mindful of the space. Her scales were deep blue, like ocean water. She looked at Marcus with curious, intelligent eyes. Marcus Webb, she said. I heard what you did for Veltheron. How you saw him as a person, not a monument. I was wondering, could we talk? I have 8,000 years of memories, and no one who really listens. Marcus smiled and gestured to the windows. I'm working for another hour, but I'm happy to have company. Do you like watching stars? Word spread among the dragons. One by one, they began visiting Kepler Station. Not for diplomatic meetings or knowledge exchanges, but for conversation. For connection. For the simple experience of being heard by someone who saw them as people, not legends. Captain Santos joked that she was now running an interstellar therapy center. But she didn't mind. The dragons were polite, fascinating, and their presence brought unexpected benefits. Other species started visiting too, curious about the station where dragons gathered to talk with a janitor. Kepler Station transformed from an obscure research outpost into an unlikely hub of genuine diplomatic exchange. Not the formal, stiff kind that happened in council chambers, but real conversations between beings who saw each other as equals. Marcus continued his night shift. He cleaned floors, organized laboratories, and maintained the station's daily operations. But now, during his breaks, he sat with dragons and diplomats, scientists and travelers, sharing stories and listening to theirs. Sarah visited from Earth, now a practicing doctor. She found her father in the observation deck, talking with a young dragon about the challenges of finding purpose in life. Dad, she said when the dragon left, your life has gotten strange. Marcus laughed. Maybe, but it's still the same in the important ways. I still clean floors. I still watch stars. I still try to see people for who they are. Veltheron knew what he was doing, Sarah said, hugging her father. Choosing you. He chose friendship, Marcus corrected gently. I just happened to offer it. On quiet nights, when the station slept, and Marcus worked alone in the observation deck, he would sometimes speak to the stars. He'd tell Veltheron about his day, about the dragons who visited, about how the galaxy was slowly learning what they had both known, that every person, from the mightiest ancient dragon to the simplest janitor, deserved to be seen, heard, and valued. The story of Marcus Webb and Veltheron became legend itself. But unlike most legends, this one didn't exaggerate or mythologize. It was simply true. An ancient dragon and a night janitor had been friends, and that friendship had reminded the galaxy of something essential, that connection matters more than credentials, that kindness transcends status, and that the most important thing any being can do is see another person for who they truly are. Marcus picked up his mop and continued cleaning. Content. He had made a difference. Not through grand gestures or dramatic achievements, but through simple, consistent kindness. Just as his father had taught him. Just as he had taught Veltheron, and that was enough. The end Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.